I remember the car was rolling over. So it was a wet road. My car hit a water puddle and had a rollover. As the accident was happening, initially, I was really scared. I thought I was going to die.
Dinesh, how can individuals follow their passion at times when they feel uncertain or they're doubtful about what they would love to do?
So I think one is to be daring enough and to be courageous enough to step outside what's expected of us. Not to follow the formula, not to follow the script.
What happened to you has almost worked as a positive to make you who you are today, and not just to be a doctor anymore, it's just more to inspire hundreds of people.
So my mum has been the biggest supporter since I was a kid, and she's been the biggest supporter since this happened, the accident. She's given up her marriage, her career to get me to where I am today. And she's the real hero.
Well, welcome to another episode of Talk with Jay. Now imagine you're a medical student. You are studying, you're going to university, and suddenly, one day, completely unexpectedly, there was a puddle of water on the road, and you meet with a catastrophic car accident that gives you a lifetime spinal cord injury and unable to walk for the rest of your life. For most of us, that would be probably the end of the journey, and we give it up and we don't go to med school again. We probably give up on our journey. Not the man sitting right in front of me. It's Dr. Dinesh Palipana. It's an absolute honor to have you in our program. Thank you so much for attending. So let me start by saying what an absolute inspiration you are to all of us. And we've followed your story for a long time. I know there's a book out there called Stronger, if I remember correctly. Can you start our program by, obviously the program is about telling people not to give up, think outside the box, just keep fighting for your passion. How about you start a little by giving us a little bit of an intro on yourself first?
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for having me. It's an honor to be here. So I spent the first 10 years of my life in Sri Lanka. So it's amazing to think that you and I are here 40 years later for me, actually. So it's been a great journey, and I'm very grateful for those 10 years in Sri Lanka. It taught me a lot of things, like perspective and gratitude, and a lot of our countrymates back home go through such hard times, right? So I think I feel very lucky. First 10 years of life in Sri Lanka. Moved here when I was 10 years old, and then moved around a little bit, finished school, studied law. So I finished the law degree before I got into medical school. And the reason I actually went to medical school is because I was not one of those kids that always wanted to be a doctor, and neither did my parents push me to do that. So, but I had depression when I was studying law, and I started to see a doctor who was Sri Lankan, actually, and he inspired me to become a doctor myself. So that's why I went to medical school, had a car accident when I was in medical school, got the spinal cord injury, and then spent a few years recovering, and then got back to medical school. And 14 years later, here I am chatting with you. So that's me in a nutshell. Today I work in the emergency department at the Gold Coast University Hospital, and we do some spinal cord injury research, have a very full, rich and lucky life, I feel.
Fantastic. Thank you for that. Now, Dinesh, you did mention about the recovery of, I'm assuming, in terms of surgery and rehabilitation, but what's absolutely inspiring is the fact that how you recovered, your journey. What happened to you has almost worked as a positive to make you who you are today, and not just to be a doctor anymore, it's just more to inspire hundreds of people that are following you. Before we get into that, could we let us know your thought process when the accident happened and what went through your mind?
As the accident was happening, I remember the car was rolling over. So it was a wet road. My car hit a water puddle and had a rollover. And my car rolled and rolled and rolled. So as the accident was happening, initially, I was really scared. I thought I was going to die. I thought that was the end of my life. I thought within the next few seconds, it's going to be over and that's it. But I read once, I think I feel really lucky again to have grown up in a place like Sri Lanka, because it gives you the opportunity to explore so many different philosophies, right? I mean, we have Buddhism, we have Christianity, we have Hindus, we have Muslims, we have all sorts of things. And I once read a book by a Buddhist monk who said that our experiences in this universe is like a diamond. So he says that when you first harvest a diamond out of the ground, it's just a rock. But we can cut it, and if you cut it just right and you hold it up to a light, it's beautiful and it shines. And he says that our experiences in life is like a diamond. You can choose to leave it as it is, or you can choose to cut it into a beautiful, beautiful thing. So when the accident was happening, I was really scared. But then I remembered this, or I thought of this philosophy, and I said to myself that if these are the last few seconds that I'm going to live, I don't want to live in fear. I don't want to be scared. I don't want that to be what I end this life with. So I decided to think of it differently, and I just pretended that I was in a roller coaster, and I actually had a good time. So for the last part of the accident, I was laughing and I was just trying to have fun. Yeah. So that was okay, and I drive past this accident site all the time, and I don't feel any negative emotions. I just think, that's the moment that I went on a roller coaster ride. But the car landed and I tried to get out. So I reached over for the door handle and I realized that my fingers were not working anymore. Then I rested my hand back down on my leg and I couldn't feel my legs. And then I realized, actually, I can't feel anything below my chest. It felt like the body had been cut off. And then I started to panic a little bit. And I tried to get out of the car, but I was paralyzed and I couldn't move. That's when I realized that I had a spinal cord injury. And that's when I realized that life will never be the same again. And I don't think I've ever been able to describe how that felt. I was scared, I was horrified, I was sickened, it was the worst moment of my life.
So from that, you took a certain period before you returned back to where you were. What thought process went through to get back to that, from what you remember?
Yeah. So I spent 7 months in the hospital. In those 7 months, I spent some time in the ICU. Initially, I was a ventilated patient. Then I came off the ventilator. Then you have to learn how to sit again, because initially I couldn't sit for more than 30 seconds before losing consciousness. So, there was a lot of physical things that needed to be done in that time. Learning how to use a wheelchair, learning how to get in and out of bed, learning how to hold things. So there was a lot of physical rehabilitation that needed to happen. But also there was a lot of emotional, social problems. We had to sell our house and my mum and dad split up during that time. It was a very, very difficult period for everyone. So there were many challenges, and 7 months in the hospital and another 3 years before I could get back to medical school. And some days it felt like me and my mum, it felt like we were, in a fog, not knowing what was in front of us. Some days it felt like we were going backwards. Some days it felt like the challenges would never end. Some days we had no money. It was really tough. But I think when you're down to that level, there's only two things you can do. One is to give up, or one is to keep going. One is to stop, or one is to keep moving forward. And I think we just chose to keep moving forward one step at a time. And that's what we did. When I was in the hospital, one of my friends, she hung up the poem Invictus by my bedside. So I used to read that poem all the time. And it means undefeated or invincible. And in the poem, the person, the author, goes through a really tough time. But towards the end, he says that no matter how hard things become, he will not bow down, and that he is the master of his fate and the captain of his soul. So I just made a decision that I'm not going to bow down, and I'm the master of my fate and the captain of my soul. I decided that I'm going to come out better than I was before. I made a decision that I was going to do more than before. And that's a promise I made to myself. So that's how I kept going. And we just kept moving forward.
Any supporters during this period that you...
My mum, it's number one. I think the love of a mother can't be underestimated. I don't think there's a stronger force in this universe. So my mum has been the biggest supporter since I was a kid, and she's been the biggest supporter since this happened, the accident. She's given up her marriage, her career to get me to where I am today. And she's the real hero. Yeah, so my mum.
Fantastic. Thank you, Dinesh. So why we're reliving through this is not just to get the story out of you, right? We're trying to get your story out and communicate that to another audience out there, another wider audience who would be absolutely motivated by this. The purpose of the vision of our program, Talk with Jay by UDAWWA, is to encourage people to follow their passion no matter what, despite all the challenges. And it's beautiful to have a real life example of someone who was challenged in every way. So there would have been days at uni, at school, where you, at med school, where you had to do so much and physically the body wasn't giving into it, was not cooperating with you. Were there days like that, and what did you do?
That's a really interesting question. So there's I think it was in the book Man's Search for Meaning. I think that's where it was written. But it was written that he who has a why to live can bear almost any how. So the trick for me has been finding purpose and finding a why. And I love medicine. I love being a doctor. I love it for, one of the reasons there are many reasons I love this, but I want to just share with you two. We grew up in a country that was at war, Sinhalese and Tamil people. And the beautiful thing about medicine for me is that none of that matters, and it can be used to heal a human being, and it can be used to unite people, and it can be used to thread humanity together rather than divide it. So I love medicine for that. I love medicine because of what my doctor did for me, and it changed my world, and that's why I decided to become a doctor myself. So medicine's close to my heart, and it feels purposeful. So I had a why, and that's why I wanted to keep going with medical school. I have learned that more than the body, the mind is the most powerful thing. And actually, I've done more since the accident than I have before. I have skydived, I have flown a plane, I've parasailed, I've done heaps of physical things that I've never done ever before.
All since the accident?
All since the accident. So I feel actually less limited than before. When I first started working as a doctor, I was faster than most of my colleagues at work. I saw more patients, I did more, so I wonder, is the body really limited? You know, I think we can achieve so much once we start to hone the mind and use the mind properly and use our will properly, and we see that all the time. So actually, no, I feel like the body has become more unleashed since the accident. Though I'm physically paralyzed, mentally, I think it has done the opposite for me.
I'm just trying to imagine this, Dinesh, like when you're saying it, and I'm sure our viewers are too. So you are seeing more number of patients than the other doctors on a wheelchair, going from one to the other?
Yeah. Hospital. Yeah.
So, I mean, I just want to make that clear for people out there.
Yeah. I mean, look, we kept some numbers at the start in my first year as a doctor, because it was important to me to see how I was doing. So compared to my colleagues, on average, I was seeing 25% more patients in the emergency department during that time. So yes.
Thank you for that. So we're going to get to the pointy end of things, where we've got your story out, so now we're going to apply it to some of our viewers out there, right? We've got some viewers out there who's got a passion, who wants to get into a certain direction, maybe with entrepreneurship, maybe with a career, something that they're wanting to give a go, but not quite there because there's fears, there's fear of failure, or there's other obstacles or barriers. Considering what you've been through, what would you tell those people?
I think I have a few thoughts on this, and the answer is not singular. One is the context of the world we live in. So there are many expectations of us socially. There's the expectation that we will finish high school, maybe get a university degree, get a stable job, pay the mortgage, get married, have kids, and then die, probably. There's a saying that some people die at 25 but are not buried until 75. So I think we make a lot of sacrifices, and we sacrifice ourselves to live with society's expectations of us. But I think the people who have changed our world for the better are the people who have chosen to challenge those expectations. One of the people I think about is Colonel Sanders. Yeah. He was in his 60s when he started KFC.
62 from memory.
Yeah. And he did many things throughout his life, but he still had the guts to go and try something new. But one of the most special moments that I've had in my life was also to have a cup of tea with the man who started DILMA. And we had a beautiful conversation once. He told me that he was in his 50s when he started the company. And DILMA has changed the world. I was in the storeroom of our hospital recently, and there are DILMA tea bags in there. And he does he did when he was here, a lot of community work as well in Sri Lanka. And again, I think that's an example of someone who wanted to challenge the status quo and left the world for better. And there are many examples like that. So I think one is to be daring enough and to be courageous enough to step outside what's expected of us, not to follow the formula, not to follow the script. And I think I'm lucky because, again, my mum, she has entrepreneurial spirit in her. She helped me set up my first business in the garage at the age of 15. So it was 1999, the dot-com bubble was happening. I was building websites and selling computers from her garage.
Beautiful.
Yeah. She helped me register the ABN, set up the bank account, all that stuff. So she's always taught me to explore my interests and passions and do that kind of thing. So I think, that's one. Just dare and not to get stuck into the formula of life is number one. And I think the other thing is to find what our passion is. And it doesn't matter what it is. You could be a dancer, you could be a musician, you could be an artist, you could be whatever it might be. But it's to find the thing that you're passionate about. And for me, I found it through a bit of a roundabout journey. I studied law first, but then I ended up finding medicine, which was my passion. And when I'm at work, I don't feel like I'm at work. I feel like I'm just doing something that I love and it's fun. So find your passion, be courageous enough to step outside what is expected of us in society. And I think the other thing is probably another Buddhist philosophy, in that everything in this life is impermanent and everything is transient and everything will come to an end. And so we have a very limited opportunity in this world to make the most of what's in front of us. We've seen people die, right? I see people die at work all the time. Sometimes they're in their 30s, sometimes they're in their 40s, sometimes they're in their 50s, sometimes they're kids, sometimes in their 80s. But I always wonder, do you have any regrets? And I've spoken to people who have regrets. They're like, my dream was to be a dancer or something, but I'll never have that chance again. So I think one of the other things, and the third thing I want to finish that question on, is to be aware of one's mortality. And that's not to be depressed or anything like that, but it's to remind us that our time on this planet is limited. And when it comes to the end, we want to look back and make sure that we've lived a fulfilling life for ourselves. No time for regrets.
I'm assuming there's no regrets from you.
I have zero regrets. Yeah.
Thank you. So how long has it been since the accident?
14 years.
14 long years. And the career so far as a doctor?
So I've been a doctor now for 8 years. And man, I love it.
Yeah. So during those 8 years there, I'm sure with your passion also comes challenges. There are multiple challenges because of all sorts of different things. How do you overcome them? I'm not necessarily asking questions on the physical ability here, but other challenges too that you may face because of many reasons.
Initially, there were more challenges when I was first starting out. When I first came back to medical school, there were challenges. When I was emerging out of the spinal cord injury, there were challenges. But as time goes by, and as we face challenges, I think challenges become less and opportunities become more. So today, I feel like I'm very blessed and rich with opportunity. I feel like I'm very lucky to be here with you, Jay, today and be having a conversation. And you know what? Just as an example, when I was a medical student, I used to wake up at 3 a.m. or 4 a.m. every day. And that's because it takes a long time to do things with the spinal cord injury. It takes time to get ready, it takes time to have a shower, it takes time to get into the wheelchair and get to the hospital and do all these things. Then I wanted to excel, so I spent a lot of time in the library studying. And so often I didn't get home till about 11 or 12. I slept for 3 or 4 hours most days and did it all again. But when it got to night time and in winter, one of the hidden things about spinal cord injury is that you lose the ability to control your body temperature. So I used to get really cold. But I sat in front of the computer. Sometimes I put a blanket over my head at the library, and I drank hot water to keep warm, and I kept going. So recently, me and my mum, we were at the university, and we went past the desk that I used to study at. And I remembered those times, and I missed the hardships in a way. I miss the challenges. I miss those times, because those challenges, when there's something like that in front of you, it strips away everything else and you're just singularly focused on one thing. So I've come to embrace challenges. I've come to embrace hardships, because I think hardship is what allows us to grow like a balloon. And it's hard to blow up a balloon, right? But once it's blown up, it's great. So yeah, I think I've come to see challenges and hardships differently.
Thank you, Dinesh, for that. So you've come to embrace challenges. I'm going to ask a challenging question. How do you define success of a person?
It is not money. So I know what success is not. Success is not money. Success is not status. Success is not titles. Success is not the house or the material things we have. Once upon a time, I thought that it was. Once I thought it's about having a big house and a big car and a lot of money, and that's success. It's not. It's empty, and you will always want more. There's always a better car. There's always a bigger house. There's always more money. So that's not it. And I think social status, titles, all those things can be taken away when you fall. So what is success then? For me, my mom says that by helping one person, we may not change the world, but we will change the world for them. I once met, this was a couple of years ago, I once met a guy, he's from Africa. He was a refugee and he came here. He had a really tough time. He was a political target. He can't go back to his country. He was a medical student there, but he had to come here as a refugee, gave it all up. So he's here and he said he saw an ad with my face on it. And the ad said, "Why can't a quadriplegic become a doctor?" And he said that moment changed his thinking. And he said that it motivated him to go back to university. And now he's doing his master's and he's choosing between a PhD or medical school at the moment. That's my success.
Fantastic.
Yeah, so I think it's actually trying to leave this world or someone's world a better place.
Dinesh, your scenario, I think, is a very unique one. We don't often hear stories like this. That's why you're very special. And how, if anyone ever happened to, maybe now, maybe in future, or maybe when you and I are not around anymore, that someone has or goes through an experience like you, what advice would you give them? We want to have it recorded. We want to have it out there. So it's there after all of us are gone one day.
Everyone's different. And I think we all have different challenges. We all have different things happen to them. For me, it's honestly just been a matter of taking one step at a time philosophically. Because it's easy to say, it's easy to say many things, but actually the challenge is to just keep moving forward. So I'd say that you might not see the light, you might not see the quick result, you might not see what's happening, but just take one small step every day. It's okay to fall, it's okay to maybe even take a step backwards once. But as long as your overall trajectory is moving forward slowly, at least, then everything will be okay.
Dinesh, how can individuals follow their passion at times when they feel uncertain or they're doubtful about what they would love to do?
So I think the first step is to find passion, and sometimes it's about taking a journey, sometimes it's about hardship. I never knew that I wanted to be a doctor, you know. I didn't grow up wanting to be a doctor. But I tried many different things. Before then I studied law, and I had many different ideas. But it was actually after going through depression in law school and seeing my own doctor, who was a Sri Lankan GP actually, that I found a passion for medicine. So there's a book, The Alchemist, which is one of the most famous books in the world, and that talks about the importance of taking a journey. You know, sometimes it's about taking a journey and finding your passion. So I think we need people who are passionate about many different things in this world. I think we need people who are passionate about the arts and about food and about science and technology and whatever it might be. But the key thing is having people who are passionate. And I love this poem that was around in the 17th century, I think. And it says that, "My barn having burnt down, I can finally see the moon." For me, the journey to finding my passion was about going through hardship and losing everything and sticking to that. And I think when you strip away all the nonsense that we have in our life, then sometimes we get to the core of what's important to us and what we want to spend our life doing.
Thank you. So, this long journey, 2008, you start med school. 2010, this life-changing event of this catastrophic accident takes place. 2017, you start practicing as a doctor. And 2022, you're coming out with a book. You're coming out of the book called Stronger by Dinesh Palipana, which is when most of us get to know you. I want to know, why the book? What's the message in the book? What can people get out of it?
So why the book? I never imagined, seeing a book in a bookstore. Like it still blows me away. And again, it was actually friends that encouraged me to write the book. And I met some people along the way that made it possible for it to come to life. So it was just by saying yes to different opportunities, by meeting some different people and having some incredible people support the book coming to life. And the reason I wrote it is because I thought, again, if it even just helps one person and changes one person's world for the better, then it's worth having a whole book written. So that's why I wrote it. And hopefully it's made a positive impact on some people that's going through some hard times. So it's just about the journey and the things I learned along the way. But what I'd actually love to see one day is for it to be translated to Sinhala.
You mentioned your mother a few times, yeah, and we can see how much of an inspiration she was to you and what she meant to you, and how much she has stood by you through this whole journey. I'm going to ask you, what's the best advice you got in your life? But I reckon it's come from her.
Actually, she's given me a lot of pieces of advice over the years. But I want to share actually just two bits of advice. Two friends have given me over time. And one was a friend who's also Sri Lankan. His name's Sarva. Sarva told me, when I was coming back to medical school, I said, "Bro, I'm going to try. I'm going to try." He said no. He was like Yoda, actually, from Star Wars. He said, "There's no try, you'll go and do." And that was a great piece of advice. So he said, "Don't try, just do." So the second bit of advice has been really impactful to me, actually. And it was another one of my closest friends. He told me when I was coming back to medical school that if I am to succeed, I have to treat myself like an athlete. So I have to combine a lot of small things and do those small things well to be successful. So I have been very intentional about what I eat, how even the routine in which we prepare clothes, the way in which I approach study, and just structuring life, because great things are a collection of small things done well. And I really adopted that to this day. So I try to do the small things well, and I think that's what leads to success. So do not try, go and do it. And great things are a collection of small things done well.
I'm still going to push you for one advice from your mum, because I think, as you said, she's someone who's given up a lot and who's done a lot, and I know there's plenty there.
Yeah.
If you want to hear one.
No, of course.
Yeah.
So my mum, she has never expressly, said, son, do X, Y, and Z. But in her behavior and in the way she has raised me, she has taught me things. So she's taught me that anything is possible. She's taught me that I should try things. If I wanted to learn to play guitar, she bought me a guitar and sent me to guitar lessons. I wanted to learn basketball, did that. I wanted to learn how to fly, she did that. I wanted to set up a business, she did that. So anything I wanted to try and do, she's always encouraged me to do it. And what she's taught me is to explore new things, have no limits, and to try everything. And it's okay to fail. And I've never been afraid to try and fail, because I think that's important. It's okay to do and fail, but it's not okay not to do at all. And I knew that if I failed at something, my mum is always there and her love is always there, which has been important. My mum has brought us to a new country. She's driven the family forward. She's bought our first house. It was all her that drove everything. So she's a pioneer. She's a lion. So more than expressly telling me things, she's taught me a lot of qualities like perseverance and courage and strength.
Fantastic. For someone out there who's worried about starting something up, taking a risk, thinking outside the box, pushing themselves, and having all sorts of barriers not to do things, and coming up with reasons why they shouldn't do something rather than should, what would you tell them?
Nike, just do it, right? It's just stop thinking, stop overthinking, and just do it. I nearly, when I was going to come back to medical school, I overthought it so much about how am I going to do things? How will people see me? How will I get around the hospital? How will I use my stethoscope? I nearly overthought it to the point that stopped me. Don't overthink it. Just do it. Just do it. Just do it. Just start.
Excellent. I think I knew about you prior to the interview, and I think through the interview, the respect just grew so much more for everything you've been through and everything you've done. You're a true blue inspiration for all of us. It's an absolute honor to have you in the program. Thank you for joining Talk with Jay by UDAWWA.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been amazing.
Thank you.